Welcome to the What's Liking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atencia. With me today is Eric Reichenbacher. How old are you and where are you from, Eric?
Hey there, Larry. I am 37 years old. Had to remember that one. I Where I'm from is can be kind of a tough question. I usually say Las Vegas. That's where I went to middle and high school. I was born in Tucson, Arizona. I went to elementary school and spent like 12 years in Columbus, Ohio. But I've lived the past 14 years from when we met in San Francisco after college, and just last year moved up to San Rafael, which is about 30 minutes north of San Francisco. When people ask me where I'm from, I would say Las Vegas. So that's the easiest answer.
Okay, Vegas or
Yeah.
Ohio, Bay Area. That's not a bad combination.
Combination. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
What do you do for a living?
So yeah, I manage a sales team for an education technology company called Remind. Maybe some of your listeners might be familiar with it if they're teachers or educators. Communication for students, parents, and teachers. So we make a communication software for schools and districts. Yeah, it's funny. I never thought I'd be in a role like sales, but I think in a specific environment, with like the company I'm at, it really works well for a lot of my strengths. So it's a good spot. But we obviously know each other from teaching and Teach for America. So I've actually known, for your listeners, I've known Larry for about 15 years now. I still remember when we first met, driving down from, I think, Stanford down to LA together. So it's definitely a good way. 6-hour drive is a good way to get to know someone. So
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
I had put my phone up to the camera to show the Remind app. That's what
Yeah.
we use at my school
Yeah.
for communicating with parents, making phone calls and sending messages. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
pretty big app in the educational realm industry. Just wanted to let people know, and I'm sure teachers have heard of it. Talking about apps, that's actually how we first contacted each other, or at least how we sort of came together because I needed someone to take me to LA from the Bay Area, and TFA had like a what would we call it, like a
Oh man,
online.
it was a Facebook group, but not on Facebook
Yeah, no,
somehow.
it
Yeah.
was some sort of like old school, sort of like newsletter message board, basically.
TFA Bay Connect,
Exactly, yeah.
I think it
So
was called. Yeah.
and I was like, I'm gonna need help, please, someone. And you were the only person that responded. Altruism.
Man,
So
I'm glad I did. I'm glad
yeah,
we
I
we
am
we
glad too.
connected.
Great
Yeah.
guy. It's been great. What, 15 years? Yeah,
Crazy, man. Yeah, 2008 we started, right? So
exactly. Are
yeah.
you? Go ahead.
No, go. Let's
Yeah,
go with
yeah.
the question. I just wanted to give a shout out to the podcast first of all, and thank you for having me on, Larry. I mean, I just wanted to say, a couple of years ago, I don't know what we were doing. I just remember you. I feel like we were visiting Philly when you first moved out there, and you were kind of just hanging out, and you were just like, you said something casually like, I'm looking for beauty in the mundane, and you just like said it like off the cuff, and I was like, I just appreciate that philosophy, and I think you fostered that ethos in your life and also in this podcast. So I've got to be one of the biggest listeners of this and the previous iteration of the What's Lacking podcast. So honored to join you today, get to delve into some cool topics here. So
Appreciate that comment. I appreciate you, and as our friendship, you as a person, as a man, and also the fact that you've supported the podcast from the beginning, and see the vision, beauty in the mundane, and
Mhm.
also the triumph in mediocrity. But yeah, everyone who gets to a particular place of expertise and just mastery of craft has to go through that, mediocrity and mediocre phase. So I think, trying to focus on the mundane, the regular, the commonplace, and is something that has its importance in life. And are you married?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, yeah. So my wife Sarah and I met. Yeah, same program we did, Teach for America, back when we were 22, right out of college. So we've been together 15 years now. It's a pretty long time, and we've been married since 2015, so about 8 years now, a little over 8 years. So yeah, man, yeah. Sarah was excited to that I was joining the podcast. You know, it was we her and I loved having you visit earlier this year out here in the
Yes.
Bay Area. It was super fun. During a pretty rough time, as you know, we had a really hard death. Sarah's mom passed away this year, so been a up and down year for sure, man. But definitely having you come out and visit was a nice respite from some of that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's definitely been
yeah,
a highlight of my year, and it was a
yeah,
great visit. It was great spending time with you guys, and also with some old students and old colleagues. So that trip
yeah,
was definitely a beautiful one, and one that I really enjoyed. And thank you for having me. And yeah,
for
it was
sure,
great.
for sure.
You have children?
Yes, yeah. So my daughter, Teddy, just turned 4 last month, August 3rd. Turning into a kid, man. I feel like right before our eyes, it's hard to even remember when she was a baby sometimes. So, man, yeah. Also, I haven't told you yet, but Sarah's 13 weeks pregnant
What?
with another girl. So we got a live reveal here on the pod, Larry. I don't know if
Yeah.
we've had one of these before.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
An exclusive What's Lacking podcast. Like only in this
Exactly.
podcast would you be able to receive these news. So yeah, wow,
Exactly.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. So
are you
April, talk to me again in April. We'll have April 9th is so far the due date right now. We'll have
yeah,
two girls then. So yeah, yeah.
exciting news. Do you want another
Good question.
girl?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, a lot of people ask me about that. I honestly, before I had kids, I probably would have told you I wanted a boy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm one of I have two brothers, two half brothers technically, but grew up with them like my brothers. And just that, I don't know, that kind of camaraderie, people with the same gender, I feel like sometimes get along or have common interests growing up or into some similar things. So I always thought, boy, maybe two boys, but having a girl, man, I know you have Maryland too, and
Yeah.
you know all about it. But I mean, I just love, yeah, having a girl, and I think I was excited. I wanted another girl, to be honest.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would have
yeah.
been obviously happy either way, but like, yeah, really, really excited about having another girl. Man, yeah, I was thinking about it too. We
Yeah.
got to get our kids together. I know Marilyn's, gotta be almost 4 now, right? She's gonna be turning 4
Almost
soon.
4, yes. Her
Yeah,
birthday's in November.
yeah,
I like that rationalization for wanting to have another girl because of the camaraderie and the
hmm
connection that will probably develop if it's another one. So I had never thought about it, maybe because I'm selfish and you are
yeah.
thinking more for Teddy's development and just, future relationship and yeah, that's a great way to think about that. I hadn't, but yeah, that's something that I'll keep in mind. Paul and
Yeah,
I, we also want another one, and if we
yeah,
do have another one, I'm definitely team, little junior, little Larry.
yeah,
I definitely
yeah,
want a boy, but
for sure.
now that you mentioned that, I might have to reconsider. Another thing about that comment is that last time we saw each other, like you had mentioned,
Yeah.
um, we had a long, deep conversation
Yep.
about whether or not you wanted another child, and seemed to me that you were pretty adamant and set on just having one.
Yeah.
And talking with Sarah as well, she also seemed to be
Yeah.
not open to having another one. And
Totally.
so, what changed? Was I a small part of changing your mind? Because I know I went on a pretty long.
You
Go
did.
ahead. Yeah.
No, you laid it. You talking about, yeah, like expanding your progeny and all this stuff, which I feel like, yeah, we had to, in spite of some of your comments, maybe. No, I'm just playing.
Not
um,
because of my
no, no, no.
comments, but in
I'm no. It's
spite
a
of my
good.
comments. Sure. I mean, whatever.
It's a good question. I feel like a lot of people come to this question, knowing, being pretty certain, right? Like I definitely want 2 or 3 kids. Da da da. Um, for us, it was always kind of like we wanted to. One, has been a blessing. We just feel so happy and like, yeah, almost some ways. I feel like we didn't want to mess that up or change things too much. Like we've got a really good thing going, but I think just that camaraderie of 2 kids, and also, honestly, some of the things that happened this year with Sarah's mom passing is like, death, and also bringing in life is just kind of this connection that we wanted to have. And I think her mom would have wanted it, and
Yeah.
we're really excited about that. And we kind of batted it back and forth, and a lot of people talk about wanting the kids to be a little bit closer. Ours will be about 4.5 years apart, which is a little bit of a gap there, maybe, but I think it's going to be a really, really cool gap where Teddy understands the process and what's happening, can be helpful, hopefully. Teddy, if you're listening, no. But yeah, I think it'll be really cool. And we kind of just decided, like, hey, if we're gonna do this, let's do it now. Yeah, turned out to be a pretty quick process. So, but yeah, neither of us were. Yeah, it's a good memory that you had, because both of us, we've been back and forth on it for sure.
That's something that Paula has also brought up, and I think is an important thing to keep in mind, which is that when you have an only child, sometimes it is important to try to expand the family so that they have
Hmm.
someone to just
Hmm.
help them in that journey of life and adulthood.
Hmm.
And just because we are older parents, we are getting older. Our parent,
Hmm.
as you know,
Hmm.
uh, death is a reality
Hmm.
for the grandparents, and
Hmm.
families in advanced industrial nations tend to
Hmm.
go their separate ways and live in different places. So it just the way that Paula framed it was that she'll always have that sibling that she could lean on for support, and
Hmm.
just look out for each other, because they'll be around the same age, and they'll have that bond and camaraderie like you were talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, that I think
Hmm.
that's truly important, and something that convinced me, or made me feel more open about a second one. And
Yeah. So yeah, I've been wanting to tell you, Larry. I've
yeah.
been wanting to let you know, or
No, it was
give you a call or text you. But I was like, all right, we're gonna be
great
talking on the
news on
pod. Let
on the
me,
on the podcast. Yeah, I feel like the Shams Charania,
yes, yeah,
of the mundane.
yeah.
Who's the guy from ESPN?
Woj,
Woj, yeah,
yeah,
Wojciechowski, no,
Wojciechowski, yeah,
Wojciechowski. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and what was your relationship like with your parents growing up?
Yeah, no, this is a big question. Yeah, so I mean, just a little history. So my parents divorced when I was 2. But so my parents had me when they were quite a bit younger. They were like 26 years old. So they were, high school sweethearts who went to college together. My dad was in medical school at Arizona, and after that, they moved out to Columbus, Ohio, for his like residency. And yeah, so my parents separated right when we were living there in Ohio, and I was about 2.5 or so. So I never really remembered them together, like having that nuclear family. So growing up, I was never, very. People always ask, like, how is it having your parents are divorced? I was never, feel like I was never really emotional about it. Everyone kind of asked me about that, and I would always say, oh, it's nice having 2 Christmases, or I'd have this some funny response or something like that. But in reflection, I think, like any kid, it really affected me, and still kind of affects me today. But see, my relationship to them was good. Like, I mean, I feel like one of my, probably, if I'm in a therapy session, probably like one of my responses to that divorce, or that kind of that split, and that challenging situation, was just be like a really good, obedient kid. Like I just listened, followed directions, like, and my parents always told me, "You're so good." Like teachers, everyone, I just wanted to excel at sports and school. And yeah, so now I feel like I'm closer and more myself around my mom. We definitely had some troubles in middle school and high school. I think like with a lot of teenagers, that's when you set out and really differentiate yourself and rebel a little bit. But yeah, I felt like she was maybe a little bit, yeah, maybe a little bit overbearing or kind of in my business a little bit too much. So I would didn't want to bring my friends around the house or anything. But I think our relationship is much better now, and I feel I feel much closer to her now and can be more myself around her. I grew up mostly with her. My dad lived in different places, so he lived in Boston for postdoc, and then when he became he's actually a child psychiatrist. He moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and New Zealand, and then
Oh,
back
wow.
to yeah, he lived in New Zealand for like 4 or 5 years. So I would only visit him and saw him really during like most like summertime. I would get on a plane and
Yeah.
go to my dad's. Um, and then holidays, Christmas and stuff like that. So um yeah, we just don't have that same kind of relationship that I feel like you get with, when you grow up
Yeah.
full time and do the day to day, the mundane, right,
Yeah.
with a parent.
So
Yeah.
just putting, connecting the dots, you were
Yeah.
in Columbus, Ohio with your dad for a few years. And then you moved to Las Vegas to be with your mom. What was the impetus behind that
Well,
decision?
no, so I grew up. So my mom stayed in Ohio, and
Okay.
she remarried. Had two other kids. With my stepdad. They're
Okay.
still together, and Nick and Craig are. If you met me, they're my brothers, right? They're half brothers. Um, so we grew up. We lived there from I was 2 to 13. So
Okay.
with my mom, stepdad, family, kind of growing up there. Good, the impetus, I think, moving out west was just my stepdad's job, my mom wanting to get back out west, being from Arizona and stuff like that. So
Okay. And how did you get along with your step parents?
yeah, no, that's a good question. My dad actually remarried a couple times, and again, it wasn't like I wasn't very super involved there because
Okay.
he lived in Albuquerque or most of the time. But pretty good relationship with my stepdad, to be honest. I think I give him a lot of credit, man. Like, yeah, he just retired this last year. He's like electrical engineer, and just yeah, worked really hard. Yeah, we didn't have the like typical close, I think, bond of like a father son, but like I mean, he did so much for me. Coach my sports, right? Like was all there, always there for me in that respect. So that's a good question. Not a lot of people
Yeah.
bring that up. And yeah, I feel really I kind of started on like a somber note of like parents divorcing and stuff. I feel really lucky in so many ways of my upbringing, like more than just even two really loving parents. I got a good stepdad, two brothers, got to see a lot of different places and like visit
Mhm.
my dad and be with him and travel and as a kid and do so many really fun things. There were definitely hard times, but just kind of like I don't know, I remember stories just like going to visit my dad and like being thrown into some like school or summer camp where knew nobody, didn't have
Yeah.
like any siblings or anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of made me develop a little there, become a little bit more extroverted. But at the same time, I had my home base. I had, my mom's
Hmm.
house to go back to. Grew up with my mom, my stepdad. our house was always really, lively. Like kids were always over. We had like a huge side yard in Ohio. It's like, I mean, felt like the size of a football field at the time. It's probably like super tiny if I drove by it now, but basketball in the driveway. Kids were 10 bikes were over there with kids playing after school. It was like a cool, like little suburban classic life there, I feel like.
That's amazing. Now, do you
Yeah.
think the lack of bonding with your stepdad was more from your part because you felt the reality of him not being
Mm,
your biological dad somehow meant that you
mm,
needed to keep some sort of distance, and or
mm.
do you think it was just
Probably.
something?
I've never been asked that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it probably went both ways, to be honest, a little bit. And there
Okay.
was never
Okay.
until later. I mean, we definitely had some arguments and fights, 13 or so, but there was never no like, you're not my real dad, type thing.
Right. Right. Right.
Was like I said, up until high school, really, really just like good kid. But
Mhm.
yeah, definitely probably some of that lack of just like super closeness because in my head I'm like, you're not my real dad.
Okay.
Like I already have a dad. So and I feel like that sort of tension and like or like taking sides, honestly,
Yeah.
uh, has definitely come up with me and my brothers a little bit in some of
Okay.
even our more adult arguments as well, for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, that's but yeah, I mean, I remember also like we when my mom was getting married to my stepdad, I was like 4 or so, and they had my brother Nick. There was a lot of like family, a little bit of family counseling and stuff, and we talked about
Okay.
some of that stuff. So I think they probably did a good job of explaining and talking about
Yeah.
what was going on at the time. But
That's
when you're young, it's hard to wrap your head around at the same time. So
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a fascinating sort of history,
hmm
and we've had a few conversations around it, but it's definitely something that I'd love to continue delving
hmm
into and talking about, just because yeah, it's interesting and fascinating, the sort of relationships we build and how those things
hmm
affect us, and also
hmm
the age at which it happens, etc. What
hmm
was your experience like in the educational system?
Yeah, I think that goes. It's such a big thing about growing up and who you are as a person, right? Yeah, it was education has always been kind of an unspoken, known thing in my family. It's like as an important thing, right? It's just yeah, it's not something we've talked about too much, but there was also always just sort of that focus on education. I think my parents, pretty educated. My going back to my one of my grandparents. He always tells all these stories growing up in kind of poverty as a son of a German immigrant in Indiana and Ohio, and he was just pretty smart and smart kid, and he went to MIT,
Oh
and
wow.
just kind of like told people like I'm doing this, I'm going to MIT, like super just like scientific engineering mind. He like worked for NASA on some of like their early missions, like designing stuff I don't even know about rockets and stuff like that. My grand his wife, my grandma, was they're still alive. She was like one of the first female classes at Boston University. And so they just like visiting them. I always, they always were just so, always, talking about education, the importance of it, and they probably wanted me to be an engineer or something like that. But yeah, I mean, my relationship to education was always, knowing it was something really important, taking it very, pretty seriously. I think even growing up in Ohio during those formative years, 3 to 13, I think are just such important years. The schools there were pretty good. They I was able to be in some like their gifted classes and stuff like that. So it gave me opportunity to go beyond what some other kids were doing, which I thought was pretty cool. And like, kind of understood that was like kind of a special thing that I got to do at the same time. So yeah, good, good relationship to education there. And moving to Nevada, it definitely definitely you could tell like the education system took a big drop in it. It was kind of a running joke, and they called Nevada the Mississippi of the West or something for education. Like on a lot of indicators, it's like
No,
down there, man.
no shots of Mississippi, but that was
And
definitely a
that,
shot of Mississippi.
I mean, yeah, sorry, but yeah, I'm just talking about like some indicators like education
Your
and stuff
your
like that.
West Coast
Bias.
elitism, yeah,
Yeah,
bias
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
came
West
out.
Coast bias. But at the same time, it's just the education system is just so unequal there in Nevada. So like, if you were lucky enough to be in like the AP classes like in high school and stuff like that, it was good experience. So yeah.
You had also mentioned that this goes along with your comment about just being around people
Hmm.
who valued education, so it didn't have to be anything that was explicitly told. You just
Yep.
understood because it was like part of
Yep.
the water of your
Yep.
um, experience. You also
Yep.
mentioned your parents met in high
Yeah.
school, but then went to college together. You want to tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I don't know a ton about that history. I mean,
Yeah.
they both went to college. There was a period of time my mom went like she actually studied childhood development, and
Okay.
has always been talking about that and the importance, and like referencing different scholars like in childhood development. Even growing up, I was like, what is she talking about? But now I'm like, oh, that was pretty cool that she actually like understood that, and I could probably use some of that right now. But yeah, she did kind of a separate thing at Northern Arizona University for a little bit, but they were always together. Yeah. But I was just gonna say, make a comment. I think my education experience was really good. However, I excelled in high school, did really well, like was one of the valedictorians at our high school. But I think our school just kind of rewarded just like diligence, getting your homework done, like memorizing certain facts. It wasn't a ton. It didn't really push you a ton in like critical thinking, questioning, creativity, innovation. I think I didn't really sort of delve into that too much until college.
Okay.
I was good at those things. I was diligent. I could memorize things. Like I was really rewarded for that. And then compared to some people who I've seen come from other more challenging, more better high schools, is definitely something I want, honestly, for my kids, for sure. But yeah, and college was a good experience. Went to University of Arizona, where my parents went. And it's a big school, so I wanted to kind of make it a little bit smaller and more manageable. So like I got into this kind of multidisciplinary major where you could kind of develop your own major and pick from different disciplines. Created my own kind of curriculum basically, and so it was really cool. Yeah, it's a good experience there. I was able to be a little bit more creative and get some of that experience as well.
What were
But
the disciplines you mostly focused on?
yeah. So it was a cool international relations was kind of the main umbrella. And then you got to focus on whether you wanted to do, they called one applied political economy or development, other, yeah,
Yeah.
other things. So you could, you chose basically, chose development, and
Yeah.
then you could choose a region, like South America, and then you had to choose do a language that was associated with that. So I did development in Africa and French. So yeah, living in California, it is kind of weird that I learned French, and I probably wish I did Spanish. It'd be a lot more helpful. So I like kind of get, yeah, I know you're gonna ask me about regret, so that's like I would call that a mini regret. If we're gonna jump ahead there.
Yeah. I've been on a economics and just like development studies kick lately. Just been reading a lot
Yes.
about that, and yeah, I think I texted you about it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Mm-hmm.
you had majored in economics because of the conversations we had on
Yeah.
Cameroon and
Yeah.
development and just
Yeah.
political economy. But yeah, now it makes sense because I'm sure you definitely had lots of economics courses as well.
Yeah.
For a long time, I was pretty anti-economics, and
Yeah.
you don't have to get into my sort of trajectory of political and philosophical views, but yeah, it's I've definitely been in the last few years sort of reconsidering and rethinking certain premises and principles and ideas that I had for a long time in my youth. But yeah, so I've been on a
Mm.
economics
Mm.
kick lately. I can't do math, so I don't think I've ever would have, been good at it or anything, but I do appreciate the sort of ideas and just pushing
Mhm.
against what I had for a long time believed in and just giving myself a balance and just being critical of myself and where I stood. So I'll come to a conclusion in my deathbed about what this all means. In the meantime, I'll try to be as open to all
Yeah.
forms of
Yeah.
intelligent thinking about life and development and technology, etc.
Well, that's one thing I appreciate you. I remember when we first met, you were like, I feel like I probably made fun of you for being like a Marxist and pretty dogmatic in your ways at the time. So I feel like continuing to grow and hold some of that you grew up, or not grew up, but like in college, we're thinking, but also see what else is out there. So I mean, I always tell people you're one of the smartest people I know. So I.
That means a lot to me because you're
You,
definitely
I mean,
you're also one of the smartest people I know. So that means a lot to me.
appreciate it.
I know also, and you had mentioned it previously that you were into sports as well growing up.
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
we also bonded for
Yeah, for sure.
over our love for sports, analyzing them, playing them,
Mhm,
etc. But
mhm.
tell me a little bit more about your experience growing up playing sports, because
Yeah.
you
So,
were pretty good, right? Like from what I
man,
gather.
yeah, I was that's where I got a lot of confidence for sure, and was just, I mean, I knew, all right, we're playing soccer today. I know exactly what to do. I know, yeah, I was, in first grades, I remember one game scored like 6 or 7 goals in this game or whatever. So like it was something that kind of came easy to me, and like I said, yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence, made a lot of friends through sports. For some reason, yeah, though, in play basketball and soccer were the main two ones. Just always, literally. I mean, so there were like some overlap periods where I was like doing a soccer practice and a basketball practice same day, or like basketball and football practice the same day. And there was some period in like fifth grade or sixth grade where I just decided I want to, all the cool kids were doing football in Ohio. It's just so big there. You got Ohio State University there in Columbus. Um, and I decided I'm going to do football, and they were like, "All right, you sure you want to do that?" And like my mom like talked to the doctors. It's okay for kids, and she was like pretty ahead of her time, I think, in some of her
Yeah.
thinking about that. Just knowing about child development and stuff like that. But doctor was like, "Yeah, until it's fine until high school. That's when you got to start worrying." So I was okay, great. So fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade was just doing really good in football, running back, scoring a lot of touchdowns, whatever. And then, man, first game, that doctor, I don't know who he was, but man, first game in high school, guy tackled me from the side. I'm like cutting, pivoting, and I was like 10 yards down the field or whatever. He must have been like a safety or outside linebacker that came over and hit me from the side at my knee, and just popped right back up to go back to the huddle and collapsed, and
Oh,
my knee just gave out, and I was like, this is huge, this is really bad. Tore my ACL, tore my meniscus, which turned out to be the biggest thing. So like, yeah, it's my honestly, it's affected my life in so many ways still, especially now that I'm getting older, really starting to feel really since I was 25, I could start feeling that knee just not really, not feel very good after doing some things. So Yeah, man, watch out if you've got people who have boys out there. Watch out for football. It's I don't even, it's not even so much like the head stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
know that's really important too, but like some of the other things that can just really, affect your quality of life later down the road. So like taking that big long picture approach. So, yeah, man, anytime I watch football or I see an injury, those running backs, man, I feel it in
Yeah.
my soul for those guys. Like seriously, for real.
You are on your way to being a proto McCaffrey.
I don't know if
This
I had the size for that, man. I'm like, yeah, I was like my size in eighth grade. So like I was pretty good size and strong for eighth grade, but I didn't grow much after that. So I probably wouldn't have been going
yeah.
anywhere. But yeah.
Right, right. I mean, you could be short as a football, like as a running back, but
That's
you have to be
that's
like
true. That's true.
compact and just like all
Yeah.
muscle.
Super muscular.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Who was that? Who
Yeah.
was that 5'8" running back from the Jacksonville Jaguars? I think his
Oh, the
last name was
muscle
Drew.
muscle hamster. Yeah,
Yeah,
Maurice Jones-Drew. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
JD.
Like you got to be built like that.
Exactly.
Shout out to Drew, one of
Exactly.
my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it seems like you had a trajectory that was cut short, and maybe that could
Yeah.
be also part
Yeah.
of your talk about regrets, French and
Yeah.
this guy tackling you.
And I'm telling you, yeah, it's
Yeah.
you, boy. Yeah. Yeah.
What are your political views?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are just what their parents were, and in some ways I am too. Like my, both parents, Arizona's pretty red, but they grew up there they're very Democrat. I feel like they're these kind of 70s Southwest outdoorsy people, super environmentalist. I feel like minimalism and just like my mom always talking about overpopulation and stuff like that. So they were always kind of in that mindset. Always like celebrate, sharing with us like the importance of the diversity. And so I definitely got a lot of that from them. Definitely, I would consider myself left of center. Yeah, I feel like there's a funny story like growing up in high school when you first kind of developing those thoughts and mindsets and what your politics are and what you think how the world should be. Yeah, they had some survey for our like AP politics class or whatever it was, history class or something, and it kind of spit out like a ranking of how liberal or conservative you are. And it was funny because I got of this class, I don't know, it was like 30, 40 kids or whatever. I was the most liberal in this class. Las Vegas is pretty conservative. There's
Yeah.
a lot of conservative kids there. And my girlfriend at the time, shout out Alexis, we're still friends, was the most conservative. And so it was like we're
Opposites
kind of
attract.
opposite ends of the spectrum. It was pretty funny, but yeah, I mean, big picture, like now, generally, so I feel like one of the main differences between the two sort of popular parties in America right now is like trusting of government, right? I generally trust government, and that taxes that we pay are going to go to what what we want them to go towards. Living in I feel like San Francisco and California, the land of big government, has like tempered that a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely makes can make me sometimes question some of the excesses of the left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I left to center. I read New York Times. If that doesn't say it all.
New
One of
Yorker.
my New Yorker, exactly. One of my favorite podcasts right now is actually, what is it called? It's this guy Derek Thompson. He was a writer for the Atlantic. Really, really smart guy, plain English, and
Uh,
he just does a really good job of just like explaining things, getting into some political topics, but like staying like understanding arguments, like very rational arguments from both sides. He's leftist center for sure too, but
yeah.
like I think does a really good job of pulling in from both sides. So yeah, pretty typical kind of California person, I would say, in some of in some of my political views. But I don't know, man. Maybe Yeah, maybe those will change too. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm open to change for sure.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
go back to something you mentioned because it's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently, which is your comment about overpopulation
Yeah. Yes.
and you equating it with somehow being a position for liberals or Democrats. And I just wanted to
Ooh.
say that overpopulation has, different
Yes.
political valences, and it's something that recently and maybe even originally had more of a conservative,
Mm.
right wing valence to it. And yeah, just wanted to
That's a
mention
good
that.
point. That's a good point. You're exactly right. And I think there can be these sometimes in these different movements,
Yeah.
strange bedfellows, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, yeah. No, I read something. Yeah, like I feel like demographics and stuff like that is I'm so interested in, and I think it has just such a outsized effect on
Mhm.
history. And there can be so much that you can just chalk back to like demographics, literally. And I think one thing I read recently is that we're in our kids' lifetime. So Maryland, Teddy, kids that are being born right now are going to experience like the peak of
Mhm.
population in the
Yep.
world. So we're 8 billion plus, right? In something like 2084 or something, they're 70, 80, they're predicting that population will peak at about 10 billion.
I'm
And then
brilliant.
just like the curve is like, dude, it's like it's so steep. It drops
Mhm.
off like precipitously.
Yep.
And just like what are the effects going to be of that? Some positive, some certainly.
Yep.
Anytime there's such a big change like that so quick, some are going to be pretty a lot of whiplash and pretty challenging for society, I feel like, to deal with. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Just as fast as population can grow, right, that multiplier effect, it can diminish just as quickly. So
Yeah, some
uh,
some some people have been making the argument that underpopulation should be the thing
yep,
that we consider
yep,
the
yep,
crisis as opposed to overpopulation, just because the correlation between development and just economic growth and fertility is an inverse one, right? So as we
yeah,
develop and as we grow, we tend to have less children, and so if we're all headed toward this sort of
mm,
future of capitalist development and education and liberal democracies and women's equality, fertility rates are going to continue to decrease. And as that happens and as we develop, then obviously the global population is going to decrease. And what are the, like you were saying, what are the
mhm,
impacts and the
mhm.
consequences of that? So
Yeah,
definitely something
yeah.
that, yeah, like more nuance and complex perspective on these questions is needed. And that's why I've been open to reading everything
Yeah,
about what the future holds.
for sure. I'm just doing my part, Larry. I already did my part. Got two kids.
You gotta have one more, right, in order for
2.1 or whatever. Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah.
math to work.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you religious?
Man, so yeah, that's a tough question. I would just I don't consider myself very religious. I think is the short answer. So I'll give the longer answer. But, I don't think I'm really religious in somewhat of a traditional sense. I grew up going. My mom had us in like a Methodist church growing up. So we would go to that periodically on Sundays. I hated it. It was torture for me. I was like, I can do school, I can do sports, I can't do church. I didn't get any of that sense of community from there. I didn't really understand it or why we were doing it. Neither of my parents seemed like very religious in the home. So it's like, why are we going over to this place, listening to somebody talk for an hour, and then I got to go to Sunday school and sit around and talk to these other kids? And go home. So I really, I kind of rebelled against that. At the same time, I thought it was can be good, and can be good for kids to like have that community, teaching, people, different morals and ethics, and obviously you can get those from different places, but it's an important institution, I think, and I'm thinking more about like the importance of institutions like that just in society, and down to the family level as well. So later on in life, I obviously met Sarah. I converted to Judaism in 2015. So I went through a pretty serious process for that. And it wasn't, people ask, like, it wasn't like some like ultimatum or anything. You got to do this, da, da, da. But I thought it was important. Like, it's very important to Sarah. She's Jewish, want to raise her kids Jewish, which we are. So we're raising Teddy Jewish. And it's, yeah, like I always would, if I would say if I was going to be any religion, it would be part of any religion, it would be Judaism. I feel like I just agree with a lot of the principles, and I think a lot of the religions are similar in a lot of their principles, and just how they do it as well. Just very kind of communal, and there's different flavors and sides of it. Like this last weekend, actually, is interesting story. We went to this family camp. So it's this Jewish summer camp called Camp Tawanga. Shout out if anybody knows about that. But Sarah like grew up obsessed going to it. It's like very like Northern California, outdoorsy, hippie type of like Judaism there. And they don't go into it too hard there. But we went to like they do a family camp version, and they're probably doing it just, bring your kid, and then that kid gets into it, and then they're going to go to summer camp, and you're going to pay hundreds of dollars for them to go to summer camp when they grow up, right? So we went to that, and it's really cool. It's kind of this type of Judaism that I really like, really celebratory. It's a lot of singing, just community, and being together. So we don't really right now, to be honest, we don't practice that much. Like here and there we might do some of the holidays, or like a family Shabbat, like, which is a nice experience on Friday where you just get together as a family, light the candles, and sing a quick song before the weekend starts. So yeah, it's something that has never been a huge part of me, but I feel like I'm thinking more about as we're developing our family, and definitely wanted to make that institution, like I said, a good part of our lives. So yeah, long
Yeah.
long and short.
Yeah, I think we're very similar, because I do
Mm.
think that religion as an institution is an important
Yeah.
component of raising children, and
Mhm.
just having a family unit that can anchor itself around holidays and
Mm.
practices and
Mhm.
rites and rituals, etc.
Mhm.
And that just gives a framework to life and to children that is going to
Yeah.
affect and just affect them in a positive pro-social manner. And so,
Mm.
I've heard this saying where it's like there is no such thing as not worshiping. It's just eventually there's going to be a choice of what you actually worship. And so,
Mm.
if we have a healthy, intelligent, shall I say, rational approach and relationship to religion, we'll be able to always choose the ways in which it allows us to be our best selves morally, and it'll allow us to think about traditions and a history of
Mhm.
how to approach life in a way that makes us better. um
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so if we don't have that, we run the risk of worshiping other things that don't have that legacy of morality
Mm.
and approaching the mystery of existence and just the beauty of it all. And so we lose a sense of wonder. What we are going to worship is going to be money,
Mhm.
the vanity of our bodies and our beauty, alcohol,
Mhm.
things that in the long run are not going to add any sort of value to one's life, or to the life of our children and our family. So I think we probably reached that same conclusion, and I think something similar happened when I talked to Joel, which is, what are we choosing for ourselves and our family? Is it easier to sort of gather from the traditions and the sort of development of these great religious ideas, which have developed in thousands of
Mm-hmm.
years, or us recreating and trying to come up with something new? And it just seems like more efficient,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
easier to just borrow from those traditions. So it's interesting because I'm not religious, and I think that for me it's just a way of using and instrumentalizing religion as a way of giving a framework to myself, my daughter, my family,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to allow us to approach life in a way that's going to add meaning and purpose, as opposed to just being caught up in social media, technology,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
popular culture, and things that could potentially just lead us astray. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I am spiritual. This sounds corny, it's a cliche, but I do think
Mm-hmm.
that I've grown spiritually and I'm a spiritual
Mm-hmm.
person. But I would separate that from the more instrumental, utilitarian role that religion is playing or will play in my family and the way that I'm raising Marilyn.
I think that's a really good point, and something I never thought about, but maybe I've been kind of thinking about subconsciously is how, yeah, you're gonna fill that worshiping void with something. Let's kind of direct it towards something positive, and that's time, like you said, time tested, instead of trying to kind of recreate the wheel. So yeah, I feel like this is all part of just growing up and developing as a person, is getting outside of yourself. I feel like, in your 20s, it's just, you're so, just the ego. It's all about, all you have to do and think about is yourself. That's been honestly the hardest part of, that transition, having kids and having to think about these big picture things, is there's that tension between yourself and your kids and your family and their development. And so it's definitely something I've grappled with, but just talking about it with people who are going through the same thing is really helpful. So
Are you doing anything
yeah,
towards self-improvement?
that's on that note. Yeah. Yeah. And I got it. I'm curious that as someone on the record deploring self-help books, Larry, I know in our book club, you said, yeah, you're like, I can't stand
Listen, that
self
changing my
self-help
mind.
books.
As
Is
J.D.
it?
Smith said,
Yeah.
I'm open
Okay.
and always
Okay.
changing my mind.
I appreciate
Uh,
it. I appreciate
but
it.
I do think that the level and the type of self-help book that I do read is
Mm.
probably way beyond just the more popular ones, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there, you know.
I know. I had to give you a little bit for that comment in the past, but yeah, little things. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I try to work out as much as possible, stay healthy, and God, I do a lot of unhealthy things that I just gotta be mindful of, just like in how I work at it on day to day. So I work from home. So I'm in my house all day long, and I think there's some definite benefits of working from home. I think there's some real big downsides too, that like we don't even know, we haven't even fully understood yet. I have just noticed it can affect my mental health some days. So I'm like really trying to do to do that in more of a healthy way, get outside, be really active. So just working on my mental health. I started during the pandemic seeing a therapist. I feel like there's just some things that, once you have a kid, you want to try to understand and grapple with a little bit more. So just going back to like the even like my parents divorcing, understanding and realizing things about myself and how I can be a better person. I feel like you got, everyone, some people are like, oh, what's the most important things in your world? It's like my daughter and my wife. And I feel like sometimes you actually need to flip that. You gotta take care of yourself so that you can be a good partner, so that you and your partner can take care of your kids really well together, right? So you kind of almost have to flip that a little bit. So I think it's a good, it's good to focus on yourself and take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. So I think it's a lifelong project, questioning, learning about yourself, what
Mm.
what you need to be a healthy and successful person. So yeah, just, for me it's mental health, it's also physical. I need to work out. I need to be doing something with my body. And I feel like for a while I was just got really down on, "Oh, I can't do the same things I could." I love basketball, for example, and playing in these like football intramural leagues and all this. I'm sure we did some of that stuff in our 20s. But now I'm kind of working within what I have now. All right, I've really gotten into playing tennis, and like I made it a big point this year to like get better at something. And so I've been really working on, I played a little tennis in high school. It's something I can, it hurts my knee a little bit, but not anything terribly. So just trying to get better at that. And yeah, just be a good partner and dad by filling my cup a little bit as well. So I think, yeah, man, therapy's been really good. Just kind of getting out some of these things that you might not just know are there, or talk about so readily with other people. You got to be sometimes push or ask those really deep questions. I think you do a really good job of that, honestly, man. It's just kind of getting to the meat of things. So those are
Appreciate that.
some things. Yeah.
And I think for us, recently, but always in our friendship, we sort of had conversation
Hmm.
about these things and how our
Hmm.
manhood and masculinity and the way that we were raised somehow added some barriers to approaching
Hmm.
that lifelong project of understanding ourselves, of being um, understanding of our emotions, our feelings. And
Hmm.
so, I'm glad that we both are trying to go above and beyond those barriers that were
Mm,
erected, maybe through family, society,
mm,
etc., and
mm,
just working on ourselves and working through some of the issues that arise from ideas of masculinity and what that means.
mhm.
Yeah. Any big regrets in life so far? You've mentioned a few, but tell me
Yeah,
more.
yeah, no, I mean, and I said it maybe kind of flippantly, but honestly, the football thing recently is a big one. One thing that I will also share that for a while, and I knew you around this time. I went to law school, so after Teach for America, I was like, all right, what's next? And when you're young and idealistic, you don't, like, going back to the previous question, you don't fully know yourself quite yet. And I did some research, but I could have done more, and I decided to go to law school. A big commitment, just financially and personally, and in your relationship. And man, I second year, probably I could tell, like, this is not for me. I it was something that, a lot of my smart, successful friends were doing. So I was like, yeah, I think let me try this out. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. And I don't want to discredit or hate on the whole profession, because there's a lot good there. But it wasn't for me. And I realized that. And sometimes I feel really regretful for it. It's, for a while, it's something I wouldn't even talk about, change the subject, or didn't really get into, because I was probably just embarrassed about it. Like, honestly, being somebody that I think, I put myself out there as, being being very, pretty confident, knowing what I want or what I'm going to do, or just being like, also just, man, the financials of it, having some of those loans is really hard. Being someone that's good with money and like very efficient with that, it's like it really just goes against a lot of, a lot of who you are as a person. I think that's what regrets, the big ones, really do. It's something that you're embarrassed about because it goes against who you see yourself as a person. And I think this is one for me, for sure. I will say, like, through therapy and talking about it, learned a lot more about myself, just, being introspective, not always just kind of looking outward and, kind of thinking what other people think of you. And, being able to forgive yourself and let go of some of those regrets. But, they still creep up, especially when I have to make those loan payments. But yeah, I definitely in a better
Monthly
place and
reminder.
like, man, exactly. Yeah. But I just, just I've got a lot of friends who have, did worked in law for years and stopped. It's just like it makes you be this combative, not not good person. Like you are rewarded for being difficult and challenging and putting up barriers and blockers. And it's like that's not who I am. I want to collaborate. I want to get along. I want to work together. I want to build things. I want everyone to be happy. Like
Yeah. So
so yeah,
it could be a soul crushing, soul stultifying
yeah,
job
yeah,
for sure. And from what I've heard, the hours are long, and
yeah,
you have to, it consumes your life in a way that other things don't. And I'm sure some people have the disposition to do
hmm
that, but
hmm
from what you just said, it just seems like there are other things that are probably more important than trying to be consumed by that sort of mindset. And I was gonna say, you being a very intelligent person, and it just seems that you follow a certain life
hmm
story when you are so intelligent
hmm
and you've built your identity around intelligence and doing well in
hmm
school, which is, I graduate,
hmm
then I go to law school, and then I become a lawyer. And, you have this story and narrative in your head of what it means to be a successful, intelligent person. That might have been part of it. And I think it is for a lot of people. So,
Totally.
if you're hearing this, it's more about, being happy and contentment and being the best version of yourself, as opposed to following a
Totally.
narrative, a story that's been given to you. Although that might also make you happy. It's just you need to decide
Yes.
for yourself.
And you probably need to be a little bit older to really
Mhm.
understand yourself and who you are, before you making those big life decisions. So yeah, I just make that. I think it's a good comment for sure, Larry.
Yeah. Last three questions, my favorites. What's your favorite book?
It's since college has been mine are all my book. They're all kind of silly, but Confederacy of Dunces. So yeah, so this is and it's a Pulitzer Prize winner. So
It's a
it's
classic.
this guy. It's a classic, right? John Kennedy Toole, and the claim to fame there is it's the only posthumously won Pulitzer, and I think that the story behind it is kind of interesting. So like this guy, man, he lived in New Orleans, wrote this book about sort of the underbelly, crazy characters of New Orleans in the 70s or 60s, I want to say. Wrote one book, killed himself, and his mom found tortured guy. Mom found the manuscript in the basement, submitted it to like Tulane or some school down there, and they published it, and it found out it was this really amazing, impressive book. So it's like this, hilarious kind of satire. Got these long, verbose sentences. Not a ton of deeper meaning there, but I feel like just a very entertaining. I learned the word picaresque, a rough but appealing character. So I
Mhm.
feel like I'm attracted to some stories and books and movies where you have that type of person there. But yeah, and just the language and dialogue and local kind of vernacular was always really cool and just kind of fun and funny for me to read. So yeah, that's one of my favorite ones for sure.
Yeah, I always knew you loved that book. I haven't read it. I want to. I remember just being a weirdo
Yeah.
when I was younger, and I was like, I only read serious novels. Why would I ever read a comic
Uh-huh.
novel? That's just not the
Yeah.
type of person that I'm, creating this identity around. And
hmm
I discovered Sam Lip's site, I want to say maybe in 2010, 2012. And I discovered the joys of just, really funny novels and books.
Mm,
And
mm,
it's been on my list. Now
mm.
that you mention it, I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna
yeah.
read it just because I do love funny
There you go.
books. And
Yeah.
I don't care anymore
You'll
about
love
building an
the just
identity
the
of
words,
seriousness.
the word. You'll it's one you even might need to pick up a dictionary while you read. So
Oh,
I know every definition, every word out there, but this one,
I don't, but
he's
like you and
yeah.
I and Joe, we're pretty good.
Yeah,
Caleb, we're pretty good
yeah,
with words.
yeah.
Favorite movie? I was gonna say when you mentioned picaresque and like in those type of characters, I was gonna say you love The Big Lebowski, which
I
reminded me
just
of that of that
it's
movie.
they go together. They kind of
Right.
go in tandem. So yeah, that's always been my favorite movie. I can pick up, watch it anywhere. Very similar to Confederacy of
Okay.
Dunces. You've got this rough but appealing character, the dude who just goes through a series of misadventures throughout 1990s
So that
LA.
is your favorite
Cohen,
movie.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
look at that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So continue.
Cohen
Sorry.
brothers.
Misadventures and
Yeah. Just like super, I don't know, the language, the dialogue, just really witty. Also kind of has this cult following, I feel like. I feel like I might need to join a cult or something, Larry. But yeah, like just really funny type of kind of dark darkish humor, but like smart. And
yeah.
I feel like that's what Confederacy of Dunces has as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, people think I'm joking when I say that. Sometimes I do feel as if starting a cult and being a cult leader is something that would probably fit me.
Yeah.
Not in any Jim Jones sort of way, but just you know, starting a new sort of commune and community of true believers around certain principles and ideas. Anyways,
Well, sign me up. I'll be part of it probably. So,
Uh, what's your favorite
yeah.
album?
Gotta say, I think the real title of it is Most Def and Talib Kweli are Black Star. So 1999, just first getting into what
98?
I would consider 98. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
98, 99.
I don't remember. I mean, I know it's around
No,
that time.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think 98,
continue.
99 probably.
Uh-huh.
So like yeah, first getting into like hip hop, it was like some of my first albums I bought were probably just really garbage. I mean, which nowadays not terrible, but like Juvenile, like whatever was popular at the time,
Mhm.
right? In the 97 when I was getting into middle school and kids were starting to get into hip hop. And then this one friend, must have had an older brother. I still remember, shout out Darren Latanic in Columbus, Ohio, made a tape, like went like only tape that anyone's ever made for me, probably 1998 middle school. And it had like the Roots and Far Side and some like West Coast, like Laturic and Lauren Hill and some other just stuff that I wasn't really Fugees, like that I wasn't really listening to at the time, or other kids our age weren't really listening to. Like it was obviously like an older brother
Yeah.
trickle down situation. Like he had some probably early like Talib or Mo stuff on there as well. And so it's like, whoa, this is different, this is new. But yeah, man, that album, just like the artwork of it, just I remember just first listening to it. So iconic and felt so different. You got like Most Def like on the cover, like wearing a scarf and like looking different than like the sort of like gangster appearance of other a lot of rappers at the time there, and just yeah, it felt cool. Like, and then I next year moved to Las Vegas, and it felt cool to like share that and be the one who
Right.
knew about that, like to my friends in Las Vegas and Caleb. We got into that together. And also I feel like, yeah, a third one that just feels like a cult classic as well.
Mhm.
And just one of the great and probably great hip hop albums of all time, and probably
Mhm.
defined a lot of future generations of rappers for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of like that conscious rap
Mm-hmm.
moment right after
Yeah.
the the death of Tupac and Biggie, and sort of like confrontation, collective confrontation with like the violence and this sort of
Mm,
like gangster rap,
mm.
and hey, maybe we should try a different tack.
Right.
Yeah,
But I felt like in a way that wasn't there's some corniness
yeah.
to that genre for sure in especially in like re-listening, but I felt like they did a good job of
It was
like
still real. Yeah,
you very real. Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you listen to their latest album as Black Star?
I honestly I felt so bad I didn't. I
Yeah,
almost in my head, man,
it's
I
good.
always
It's
it
good.
is good. Okay, so
I
like
like
I
it a
don't
lot.
want to like tarnish in some ways like my thinking
Yeah.
of them, and I've listened to some of their earlier like more recent stuff, and it
It was
just
it
I don't
was
want to.
it was panned by the critics, but I,
Yeah,
Larry, the
yeah.
individual, really liked it. I thought it was
Okay.
good. I really loved the lyricism. I loved the beats. It was great. I mean, it's probably bad, but I liked it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's I like, and I know you might disagree. I like the new No Name album, and I feel like these people who kind of carry on the tradition of like I don't know that the more conscious or more that type of hip hop. I tend to gravitate to sometimes, but I feel like
Yeah.
you also opened my eyes to some other people, and man, that I feel like when we first were becoming friends, that Carter 3 was just
Ugh,
like
yeah.
another seminal album in my listener
Yeah.
journey for sure.
Sometimes we follow what the sort of critics and narrative around certain
Mm,
artists, and we
mhm.
think that there's a particular position to take when we are partisans of a particular sound or genre. And so if you were like a conscious, into conscious rap, East
Mhm.
Coast, traditional hip hop, Lil Wayne was like, "Oh no, I can't like Southern rap.
Right,
It's not the
right.
same." And but that's why I always tell people you just gotta listen to it. You gotta give it a chance
Mhm,
at least once, and you'd be
mhm.
surprised about how good a lot of the popular things that tend to be dismissed can actually be. So yeah,
Mhm. For
that was me
sure.
for sure with Lil Wayne, just being kind of like a hip hop head, and being from
Yeah,
New York, and just all about lyricism, and
yeah.
having this idea of like Southern rappers not being at the same level. But I remember being in at Temple, and working with some high school kids, and they were like, "Yo, Larry, you're crazy. Like, you got to listen to this." And I was like, "All right, I'll give it a listen."
Mm.
And yeah, these high school kids know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Even
that's
a
cool.
few people at Temple who I respected their intelligence and their love of hip hop. They were also like, bro, like ignore the hate and the narrative around Lil
Right.
Wayne. You got to go listen. And the same with
That's
other
cool.
rappers and other music. It's just be open,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you'll be pleasantly surprised.
That's that's a good point, and I think yeah, I love music, man. It really as some for someone who's I never played an instrument growing up. I wish I did honestly, because I feel like it just really speaks to me, and I think it's a good point of just being open to different types of music. And I feel like for a long time I wasn't, and I'm like now starting to like get into it, and like especially one of my new kind of hobbies is like seeing live music of different kinds and just kind of being more open to that. And I've learned that like man, hip hop live is not good. It's not how it's meant to be. Honestly, man, I go to
Yeah,
these and I've like, oh, I got to see this and this and this, and it's like it ends up just like not living up to the expectations. It's
yeah,
meant, I don't know. For me, it's like you got to listen to it in a car or speakers or
yeah.
headphones.
It's funny. Yeah, I was having
You
the same
know,
conversation with Ty. We were like, it
yeah,
has to be a really special type of artist and performer um
yeah,
to be able to
for
do a,
sure.
a, a good hip hop concert. But
Yes,
most, yeah, it just doesn't feel the same. It's not the
yeah,
same. But yeah, on that note, great conversation. It's been great
yeah.
having you. and we'll continue talking. Thank you for joining the What's Liking podcast.